Atlantic Magazine released more text about the Yemen strike plan from the group chat. We'll start off with TextGate, Yemen Gate, Houthi group chat gate, whatever you want to call it. I have a lot of unique thoughts on the matter that I haven't really seen be broadly reflected in other mainstream outlets. So let's take a look at what's going on here.
This is CNN Breaking News.
All right, we have breaking news. The Atlantic has just published a brand new piece by Jeffrey Goldberg and Shane Harris. And it has the details and the text messages that the government says was not classified. And it tells you all about what is happening 31 minutes before they launch the planes that drop the bombs in Yemen. Brian Stelter joining us now with more details. There are huge revelations in this, and they certainly, how would you describe what you're seeing in the text messages?
These are shockingly detailed descriptions of the bombs that are about to fall in Yemen, and Jeffrey Goldberg is getting these details many minutes before the bombs fall. If this is not classified information, I would like the president to tell us what would count as classified information. Now, the Atlantic is publishing this on theatlantic.com because Trump and his aides have said that none of this is classified. That has been the main defense from the Trump White House in the past 2 days, that these text messages were a mistake. Goldberg never should have seen them, but nothing was classified. Nobody was in any danger. That's the argument we've heard advanced. Because of that argument, Goldberg went back to his colleagues and talked with his lawyers at the Atlantic, and they decided to go ahead and publish the text messages that they had originally withheld. Remember, Goldberg withheld some of this information because he thought it could risk national security, because it could have put U.S. military members in harm's way. So now he's decided to go ahead and publish the full unredacted text message chain with one omission. He is still withholding the name of a CIA employee because the CIA has asked him to do so. So that is notable. There still is something in these messages that is considered so sensitive that the Atlantic is choosing not to publish it. But
yeah, of course the information is classified. What a stupid conversation to be having. I mean, the administration is so wrong. Okay, our story begins in Yemen. As you guys know, the Ansar Allah movement, led by the Al-Houthi family, also known as the Houthis, which was redesignated as a terrorist group under the Biden administration under Operation Prosperity Guardian, has been maintaining a blockade on the Red Sea, which happens to be along their coastline. Biden spent $1 billion in Operation Prosperity Guardian to try and stop them from overtaking ships passing the Red Sea in an effort to thwart the flow of commerce that goes through Israeli ports. They actually saw a lot of success in this process. The people that, on the other hand, saw a lot of failure in this process was the American government. The American government spent $1 billion and did not end up stopping the Houthis from being able to overtake ships and make it virtually impossible and far too dangerous to allow commerce to flow through the Red Sea. And now the Trump administration is doing the exact same. In a circumstance like this, you have two options. You either try to bomb Yemen again, as every president has done prior, from Barack Obama to Trump 1 to Joe Biden to Trump 2, or listen to the demands that the Yemeni government is making, specifically looking at when the blockade on the Red Sea stopped. Because the blockade on the Red Sea did not exist pre-October 8th. The blockade on the Red Sea did not exist during times of ceasefire. They very openly said, we're stopping our blockade. Commerce can flow through the Red Sea once again, since Israel has finally come to the table and agreed to the terms and conditions of their quote-unquote very own ceasefire. So that's the process here. You can either listen to the demands being made by the Houthis, which is very reasonable. Actually, very moral, 100%. I will say that. I have no issue stating that. It is one of the few groups in the region that is actively trying to issue financial penalties to an apartheid state that is currently doing a genocide. Okay? I'm not going to sit here and say that their demands are unjust. It is perfectly reasonable, and the expectation from all of you would be the exact same during the Nazi Holocaust. If people were trying to disrupt supply lines going into Germany at the time, if they knew that the concentration camps were being built and set up and the Holocaust was taking place, I'm certain that no one would criticize the resistance, just like no one would criticize the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, unless you're a Nazi, in which case you would criticize those things. So, America, being the most powerful nation on the planet, has the capacity to rein in its attack dog Israel in the region and say, hey man, enough, you've done enough genocide, we got to dial this back. But instead, they're attacking all of the people that are trying to stop Israel from doing a genocide, because we are objectively the bad guys. But of course, Trump being Trump and having an administration filled to the brim with some of the most incompetent drunkards and rapists has had an incredibly Trumpian moment here. Mike Waltz, the National Security Advisor, sets up a group chat on Signal. It's a commercial application that anyone can use. Very strange. Normally, classified information should be documented and kept to secret back channels of communication. You should never use an application that can use the phone numbers in your personal contacts list on your personal phone to make matters of state security, to communicate with people on matters of classified information and war. Okay? There's a secondary side to the story that I don't see a lot of people talking about, which is that Signal conversations are slated to be deleted. They get deleted after a certain period of time, and I'm fairly certain that this group chat, the Principals Committee group chat that they had set up, that they actually invited Goldberg, Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic magazine to, accidentally, was slated to be deleted. This is illegal. This is illegal. These sorts of conversations are supposed to be documented and logged. It doesn't have to be revealed to the public, but they're supposed to be documented and logged. The very fact that they are having secret convos like this that are slated to be deleted is dangerous. Okay? It is a way to skirt accountability, and that is precisely the reason why it is illegal. Just so you understand. Disappearing message time was set to 1 week. As I said, these are the text messages that were fully revealed, from what I understand, by Jeffrey Goldberg and The Atlantic. And as you can see, it says, Michael Waltz, National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, added you to the group alongside 18 other members. Every single person on that Houthi PC small group is a person that's supposed to be there. Well, I guess technically no one is supposed to be there because it's not supposed to be on Signal, but these are the people that are supposed to be having this conversation, with the exception of Jeffrey Goldberg. Now, my opinion on this is a little bit different than the way that the media is covering it, because everyone is focusing on the incompetence of this administration. Everyone is focusing on the national security issues that this presents. As someone who thinks that the American actions against the Houthis is completely unjustifiable and on the wrong side of history and on the wrong side of morality, as someone who believes that the American State Department could do a whole lot of good and refuses to do so and does a whole lot of bad instead, I don't necessarily care that they are being incompetent. I wish that they would be less belligerent and still be incompetent. I care about their belligerent nature. I care about their violent nature. I don't necessarily care that they are being incompetent and accidentally revealing the comings and goings of how the executive office makes wartime decisions. And I've always maintained that I'm pro-leaks. Okay? And there it is. This is from April 14th, 2023. I like leaks. I don't care if it's because you saw massive harm being done to civilians at the hands of our military and wanted to blow the whistle, or because your Groiper Discord kittens were acting out of line and you needed to teach them a lesson. This is what I said about the Groiper military guy who leaked state secrets back then. Leaks are good. I'm pro leaks. I am always pro leaks and will continue to be pro leaks. This is how good journalism happens. Now, of course, lucky for them, even though they were unlucky and invited Jeffrey Goldenberg into this conversation. Lucky for them, Jeffrey Goldenberg is not a good journalist. He's a bad journalist. He's a stenographer for the State Department. He has actively championed the Iraq War and followed through on the lies that the American government was presenting. So for that reason, he managed this in, I think, the worst ways possible because he's a careerist. That's precisely the reason why the National Security Advisor, Michael Waltz, had his phone number to begin with. Okay? Having said that, everyone's focus on this has been the hypocrisy. Hillary Clinton vindicated. Or the fact that they made this like blunder, this very stupid mistake. And I get that. It's funny. Okay? That part is funny. And their defense of this, the administration's defense of this has been even funnier. But I think it's still more important to remember that these guys are talking about blowing up civilians in the poorest nation on the planet. And for what reason? Because the poorest nation on the planet has decided to take matters into their own hands against a much more powerful nation in the region doing unlimited child murder in a genocidal campaign that they have enacted. I think that in and of itself is far more important to discuss, and I don't see anybody discussing that aspect of it. I truly don't see a lot of people discussing that aspect of it. But I digress. Let's get back to the drama of it all.
But the headline here is that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth did send detailed descriptions of the military strike in Yemen to this group ahead of time. Goldberg was able to read these messages ahead of time. He looked at it and didn't know if it was real or not, but then he looked on social media and saw that the bombs were beginning to fall in Yemen. People can read this for themselves on the Atlantic website, but what you see in Hegseth's message, the key message here is from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and he specifies the timing for the attack, the first wave, the second wave, which military fighters were going to be used, and exactly what would happen when. So again, if that's not classified information, honestly, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I just want to quickly read one of the things. It says, time now, weather is favorable, just confirmed with CENTCOM. We are a go for mission launch. And then it describes in detail what they are about to do. So clearly, these are war plans over and over and over again. Pete Hegseth has said these are not war plans. This is going to be a very difficult thing for the administration to deny at this point with this being published. Thank you so much, Brian Stelter. Stick around with us for a second. John?
All right. And we're furiously going through these texts right now to get a sense of what they are. I want to bring in our chief national security.
In the military, if someone did this, you'd be violating UCMJ, of course, but also Pete Hegseth. If you had that many openings as someone with alcoholism issues and as someone who was if you had been alleged to have raped somebody and there was a police report about it, they would never elevate a normal person and give them top security clearance, let alone even like low-level security clearance. So yes, when you are at that level, when you are a dick rider of Trump, they just kind of let you do it. Yes. It does not matter. None of this stuff matters. How could they plan out how to bomb the most civilians possible using Signal instead of a skiff? Yeah.
Security reporter Alex Marquardt. And Alex, what is striking is that some of the messages that were sent before the attack took place talked about which weapons, which aircrafts would be used, and what time the bombs would be dropped.
Yeah, and this all goes to the question of what are war plans, because the pushback that we have heard from the Trump administration and from Pete Hegseth specifically, who put the most detail in this chat, was these are not war plans. So that's what they're quibbling with. These are certainly strike plans because this is an extraordinary amount of detail. Now, The Atlantic is saying that they feel comfortable publishing this because of this repeated pushback from the administration, that what we are looking at is not classified. But I just want to reiterate what our colleague Brian Stelter said. If this is not classified, we don't know what is. This is some of the most valuable information when it comes to carrying out strikes that, in fact, the CIA Director John Ratcliffe said yesterday, this is the kind of stuff, these pre-strike deliberations should take place in classified channels. They did not. So not only do we have all kinds of information about what was going to happen, we now also have information about what happened afterwards, essentially a post-strike assessment report, which is not something that we had seen in the original report from Jeffrey Goldberg. All he had said was that Pete Hegseth, in the hours prior to this strike on the Houthis on March 15th, laid out operational details, timing, weaponry, etc. So a lot more details here. We have at 12:15, Pete Hegseth says the first launch of F-18s. And then in all caps, as he's laying out the timing of how this is going to go, he writes, this is when the first bomb.
What was the best way for Goldberg to have handled the situation, in your opinion? Never reveal that he actually has access to this data until he gets something that is so alarming that he writes about it. I think he just stays in the chat. If they don't recognize that he's in the chat, he just stays in the chat and he keeps logging for as long as he can. Or he reveals the plans instantly. That's espionage? No, it's not espionage. You want to know why it's not espionage? Because they fucked up. It's not like he snuck into the chat. They added him. What do you mean? You can't say something is espionage. Put me down? No, I will not be putting you down. I'm going to shake you a little bit too. Shouldn't this one action already be enough? Like in any other administration, I can see this being a huge deal compared to now. No, nothing is a huge deal anymore. Would have been illegal for him to do this. He has an affirmative duty to let them know he fucked up. They fucked up, you mean, not he. I know what you're saying, but he can't just lay in wait. Yeah, I don't care. I don't care about the affirmative duty in this situation. I don't think you guys understand. I am an unconditional supporter of Edward Snowden, Julian Assange, Chelsea Manning, and many others. Okay? So you're not going to get me to go, yeah, he actually shouldn't gather as much intel as possible and then blow the whistle on all of it. What are you talking about? He's a journalist. The expectation from us as American citizens should not be to have journalists play ball with the State Department. Every single person, every single journalist should be inherently contentious towards the State Department. But because in the aftermath, especially of 9/11, this attitude has completely been shredded, that we don't even expect them to do journalism. We expect them to be good people that never violate any rules or laws. Like, what are you talking about? Virtually every big investigation from the Pentagon Papers all the way back to uncovering the massacres in Vietnam, shouts out to Seymour Hersh for that, they were all actions that were inherently against the State Department's opinions and goals, and they were illegal technically. Modern liberals have unironically forgotten about what journalism is supposed to be. Playing ball with an administration and playing ball with a government is not what journalism is. But of course, that's the reason why Mike Waltz, the freaking national security advisor to the Trump administration, has Jeffrey Goldberg's phone number to begin with. That's it. It is the heart of the problem with modern journalism. It is part of the reason why people don't trust journalists in general. And I talked about this yesterday. Hey, journalists here, the reality is if you add a journalist or invite them into a room, you open yourself up to getting reported on. It doesn't matter how they got there. For example, the reporter going into your bedroom and reporting on your phone call with your manager, it is part of the game. People in chat are dumb. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's free game, baby. What is a journalist supposed to do? Then they have their job is not to do journalism. Their job is to be a stenographer. And you're openly recognizing that. You're openly stating that you want journalists to be a stenographer of the State Department. Like that's wild to me. I don't understand that at all. I tweeted about this yesterday and people were kind of mad at me for that as well. I said, where is it? Jeffrey Goldberg refusing to dump all the text messages in the Houthi signal chat is exactly why the NatSec advisor had his personal phone number. It is precisely the problem with fake journalists at legacy publishers. They're stenographers of the State Department. This person says he hasn't dumped them yet. They're going to be pulled by Senate Intelligence Committee after testimony from everyone involved that no classified information was shared. It's not ideal for Twitch streaming, but sometimes it's better to be patient. It's like, this is not about Twitch streaming. Like what? The expectation that you have to wait for the State Department to tell you what you are allowed to report is insane. You know? It's crazy to me. Sometimes better to be right than to be the first to post about it. What? They think you were wrong because they got published? Wait, what? People were mad at you for that. Your replies are very stupid. Yeah, always is Twitter. Twitter is very stupid. Wait for the State Department to censor potential info that shows how fucking dumb the admin is. A moron. Yeah, so here's the thing. What you're supposed to do in this situation is go to your legal team that knows what kind of information is not publishable, okay? You're supposed to black out certain pieces of information. Like, you can't, there's an argument to be made about not uncovering, like, CIA operatives, for example. If you ask me, I don't really care, but I understand why, you're not supposed to unmask active duty service members and put their lives in harm's way. It's a moral, there is also like a moral argument there as well in terms of like, do you want to be responsible for someone getting killed, right? Like that's a thing that you have to think about. One of the best examples of this, of course, is the way that the now disgraced but formerly award-winning journalist Glenn Greenwald and the way that he went about reporting on all of the information uncovered by Edward Snowden. Okay, like there were plenty of parts of the Edward Snowden documents that were, of course, redacted. Same with Chelsea Manning. There's always going to be plenty of parts that will be redacted. Okay, now read your own tweet. What do you mean? I understand that part. Okay, I understand that. When I say dump all the text messages, I'm saying you can redact key aspects of it. Playing ball with the State Department and waiting for them to give you the go-ahead is not journalism. At no point am I saying you should wait for the State Department and get the go-ahead from the State Department. That is not journalism. The irony, of course, is that there are still parts of the text messages, from what I understand, if you get the go-ahead from the editor of the State Department, you don't get the Watergate leaks. Exactly. That's what I mean. Like, what are we talking about? Like, I think maybe a lot of people don't understand like the history of journalism in the United States of America or how it's supposed to work. And that's fine. That's okay. I mean, this is a big part of why I do what I do, where I try to like explain to you media literacy and look at American media and Western media and media all around the world through a critical lens. And this is part of it. This is part of my job here. But so much reporting would just never be released if they waited on the State Department to give you the go-ahead, in which case that's not journalism at all. That's just you're being, once again, a stenographer for the State Department. Whistleblowers are supposed to uncover truths that the government wants to hide. It's very interesting that people don't understand this. It's not Jeffrey Goldberg's job to maintain state security. His job is actually to sometimes violate state security. His job is directly supposed to be adversarial to every single person that's in that group chat. You're not supposed to play ball with them ever. If you are playing ball with them, that means you're not doing journalism. You're doing the opposite. That's why I say he is a stenographer for the State Department rather than one who is directly at odds with it, which is precisely the reason why this conversation now is on the aesthetics and the silliness of the administration and not necessarily the actions that were being taken here.
Bombs will definitely drop. That is extraordinarily sensitive information. And the point that we have been making and that Jeffrey Goldberg and his colleague Shane Harris make in this report is, if it were not Goldberg in this chat, if it were someone else who could have shared this information with the Houthis, with other adversaries, they would have had access to an extraordinary level of detail about what was just going to happen. But I really do want to highlight some of the new information that we got here about what happened in the wake of this strike, because what we had understood was that Pete Hegseth and perhaps John Ratcliffe, the CIA director, that they had put the most sensitive information into this group chat. Here we have Mike Waltz, the national security advisor. He's also adding some extraordinarily sensitive information into this chat because he gives the group a sense of what happened in the aftermath. He writes that a building collapsed. He actually said that specifically to J.D. Vance, the vice president. He talks about this building collapsing, the fact that they were able to kill what he called the top missile guy who was walking to his girlfriend's building, and it has now collapsed. So this is an after-action report from the National Security Advisor. He praises the intelligence community. He praises Pete Carilla, the head of Central Command. So this is just, again, a remarkable...
How can people see the state media as a sign of totalitarianism but want the State Department stamp on all information? I know. It's like people talk about the restrictions placed upon free press in China, and then without a shred of irony will unironically say, we need to implement similar structures here in the United States of America. And it's like, how are you? No, I want journalists to operate freely and be adversarial both in China and also in the United States of America. Like, what are we talking about? It's very important. Like, why are we waiting for the stamp of approval from the state for journalists to do their job? If that was the case in every single story, there would be so much information that you'll never get access to. Required reading in journalism school should legit be manufacturing consent. Changed my whole perspective on how I work after I read it. Yeah.
Level of detail. We have heard in the past 24 hours the Trump administration sticking to their guns, saying that none of this is classified information, but that they don't want it out there because they don't want, as Carolyn Levitt said, internal and private deliberations amongst high-level senior staff to be put out there. They objected to this release, but we now have much fuller detail in terms of what was in these text messages on this Signal chat. And of course, guys, this comes just
especially this administration, you have no duty to defend them. You, as a matter of fact, I would say, have a duty not to defend them, to constantly present yourself as an adversary. If you are a journalist who cares about this job, who cares about the future of journalism, who cares about the future of democracy, theoretical or in practice, you have a duty not to work with this government and to do the exact opposite. It's crazy. There is nothing, no holds barred. It's crazy to me that people still maintain this notion that you have to make sure that the information is that you're presented with due to the ineptitude of this administration is one that you have to get additional stamps of approval from the state from. Like, get the out of here. How is that any different than like having a military censor, like in the IDF, carefully go through everything that you are releasing? Then it's not real journalism in that point.
An hour and 15 minutes before these intelligence officials are supposed to sit down again in front of an intelligence committee on Capitol Hill.
This is when the first bombs will definitely drop. Again, an extraordinary level of detail on a text exchange before the actual bombs drop. And one point I want to reiterate here is that while Pete Hegseth and others say this was not classified information, that might be semantic only because Pete Hegseth himself can even retroactively say information was not classified. Alex Marquardt, thank you for that reporting.
Let's get to Jeff Zeleny, who is at the White House for us. Jeff, these are extraordinary text messages that a reporter was added into this group. Mike Waltz saying it was a mistake. How is the Trump administration and the Trump White House going to explain this? And are you hearing anything from them? Because they have been standing by all of the members of this group, including the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth.
Look, Sarah, as you're just saying there, we're getting an extraordinary minute-by-minute look at some of those messages now that the Atlantic has published in the wake of the president's and others' assistance yesterday. There was no classified information in these, but we're also getting a peek behind what led to the publishing of these. The Atlantic, we're told, as they're writing in the magazine this morning, that they alerted the White House and other national security agencies and said that they did plan to publish and ask if there were any objections. So the White House press secretary is pushing back again this morning, a very familiar page from the Trump playbook, and again attacking the Atlantic, calling it a hoax, going after
They should also be sucking up to the Atlantic, you know what I mean, for not immediately leaking this information, which they should have, in my opinion. Like, he should be kissing Goldberg's feet for not immediately verifying whether or not this group chat was had any veracity. Like, that's another thing. Jeff Goldberg being like, oh, I thought it was a joke. Like, dude, what is wrong with you? You are the editor-in-chief of a prominent legacy media publisher, and you didn't, like, you had this incredible scoop dropped on your feet, okay, placed upon you on a silver platter, and you didn't investigate further. You didn't, like, try to see if these numbers were actually the numbers of the people that you were in the group chat of, to figure out whether or not this was a real conversation taking place and then instantly report on it. Every part of the story frustrates me as someone who does a lot of media criticism, okay? Like, it's insane to me that he was just like, oh, I was in the group chat and I was like, oh, this is a funny meme. Like, you're not a random guy. You're not a random guy. You should know better. And then he left the group chat too. He's like, I'll see myself out. Peace, boys. Every part of this is so frustrating. Him saying he thought it was a joke is a lie, bro. Yeah, I'm willing to bet that is a lie. Yes.
Some long-held grievances that the president has held with Jeffrey Goldberg, who's been the author of several pieces over the years that the president has not liked. But the White House press secretary is also going after a Wall Street Journal editorial this morning that is taking a specific look at Steve Witkoff. He, of course, is one of the president's close friends, who's a Middle East envoy. He was meeting with Vladimir Putin on March 13th, at the time that all these conversations and signal messages were going on. But the White House is pushing back and saying he was not using his personal phone while he was in Moscow. He was using a government phone when he returned back. But the actual substance of this, so this is what certainly will be shined a light on at the House hearing that is now scheduled to begin in just a little over an hour. The very specific details of these wartime plans, from the weather conditions for the bombs are about to drop. So again, as we saw yesterday, the light was shining on the defense secretary. We saw the director of national intelligence and the CIA director saying it was up to the defense secretary to answer questions if these were indeed the classified war plans. And now we can see for ourselves very operational.
I'm a fan, but why'd you use a rare opportunity to noticeably call out Elon Musk's corruption and racism to invite him to collab and game with you instead? Why do you want to collab with a Nazi? As a fan, I think you should probably understand that if he were to come on this stream, it would not be to simply collaborate and have a tickle party. I think that's just like me saying, like, come on the stream. Are you okay? Like, do you think that if Elon Musk came on the broadcast that I wouldn't use that as an opportunity to ask him some serious pointed questions? You think I would you think I would just like have fun with him, like, and talk about how wonderful he is? Perhaps you should ask yourself how you arrived at such an unimaginably uncharitable and perhaps stupid opinion of me. You know? Ask yourself that. It's just negative critical thinking skills all the way down, I think. Wow, Donald Trump wants to come on your stream. It seems like you want to platform Donald Trump. Sweetie, have you thought about the repercussions of platforming the president or platforming the shadow president? Also, it's so funny because, like, Elon Musk, despite his endless stupidity, also understands that invitation is simply bait and didn't bite it. But that chatter personally thinks I love Elon Musk now. What a strange way to approach this issue. Anyway, let's continue.
Details there that certainly are now giving new fodder for more questions. So the White House was thinking yesterday, was hoping that they were going to put this behind them, at least the political fallout from this. And they're trying to make it into a political scandal, not a national security controversy. We shall see how successful they are in doing that. But now, having all of these plans in front of us, it certainly looks like minute by minute by minute what was about to happen certainly seems like war plans and war planning to anyone who's reading it.